Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Jason Crow from Colorado, a former Army Ranger who served 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'll get to those comments in a minute, Congressman, but you serve on the Intelligence Committee. Have you heard anything about limiting the intel that you get? And what would be the effect if that happens?
I haven't heard anything from Congress or from the committee, and I would hope there would be severe bipartisan pushback on that, because it just simply could not work. The United States Congress is the only authority that can declare war. We're the only authority that can pass a budget for the military. We're the only authority that actually makes the laws that build our military and provide authorization for intelligence programs, for covert action programs, for basically everything that the commander-in-chief does. So the idea that we would have limited information or limited intelligence for the first time in history simply does not add up.
Well, it appears that the motivation for this was the leak, and Speaker Johnson was asked about the source of it, and here's what he just said.
There was a leak, and we're trying to get down to the bottom of that. It's dangerous and ridiculous that happened, but we're going to solve that problem, and we'll keep the coordination.
Do you think the leak came from Congress, sir?
That's my suspicion.
Possibility that it came from Congress. Have you heard seen any evidence of that? And if it is the case, if a leaker is a member of Congress, should there be consequences?
I haven't seen or heard any indication of the source of it. This seems very premature. Leaks of any type are dangerous and unacceptable, and there should be an investigation, and there should be accountability if there is a leak, right? Just like I called for accountability when the Secretary of Defense and senior members of the administration put war plans and operational plans on an unsecured signal channel, just like I called for accountability when top secret documents were found in Donald Trump's bathroom in Mar-a-Lago, and on and on. You know, we should apply the same standard regardless of the political affiliation of the person, and that remains true.
So let's talk about the briefing that is going to happen tomorrow in the House classified briefing. What are the key questions you want answered?
Well, there's 2 things going on here. One is, what was the actual legal constitutional justification for Donald Trump actually launching this attack? Right? The president only has authority to launch an offensive operation when it's actually in self-defense, when there is an imminent threat to Americans, to American lives, or U.S. facilities. That is a very clear standard. The Congress was not given advance notice. The Congress was not asked to give authorization, so that standard has to be met. We have seen no intelligence that would actually show that standard being met. So that's number one. And the attack has already happened, so the administration should be able to immediately provide that information, because in theory, they should have it. The second part is the battle damage assessment from the attack. They've made claims about the effectiveness of the attack, obliteration. We've all heard these claims. Well, I would like to see it. There have been assessments provided to Congress. I would like to see, the full and complete battle damage assessment that they claim exists. They also should have that information and should be able to provide it immediately.
Today at the briefing, Chairman Kaine, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, went into detail that we had not heard before about how extraordinary it was, what was pulled off by the U.S. military. I think we can all acknowledge what the pilots, what the refuelers, what everybody involved in that operation did. Having said that, you heard Secretary Hegseth say that questioning the assessment of the president, which came that same night within just hours, talking about obliteration, undermines the success of the military who undertook that operation. Is that the net effect?
Listen, I don't think I can more strongly push back and condemn that notion that you can't both criticize a military operation and question as a member of Congress whether it's effective, because that is our constitutional obligation, and at the same time praise the service members that carried out something that was a remarkable operation by any metric, right? Doing something like this is extremely dangerous, and they all came back safely. The idea that you can't do both of those things at the same time is actually so dangerous.
The information that they need. Tell us why these briefings, classified briefings, are important, and whether you think earlier is better.
Yes. First of all, those briefings should be classified and in no way shared with the public. And that way you can sort of get at the root of the intelligence, the fusion, and all of that. This time, White House was too soon out of the gate with the initial report from DIA, and I'm not sure how that initial DIA report came out. It certainly wasn't coordinated. It's normally you want to get a fused effort of the different intelligence agencies, but there's also an urgency to get the word up the leadership chain. In this case, we can see already, again, the first report is always wrong. It was sort of a sarcastic thing we used to say in Army intelligence, of which I was a member 34 years. So there's fog of information right now, and we need to be, straight-eyed on it and not get out into the public this contentiousness that we've got right now.
There is a lot of contentiousness, as you know, Tim, on one hand. Just today, Secretary Hegseth criticized that initial assessment, saying, look, it came out only a day and a half after the actual strikes. And yet Donald Trump's assessment that the sites were obliterated came even sooner. It came that night when he spoke to the American people. What do you make of Secretary Hegseth's update this morning?
Yeah. Look, just the lack of seriousness of Secretary Hegseth and just this feeling that you've got to butter up President Trump and you've got to make him feel like he was right and you've got to make him feel strong, like we're living in some country where you have a king or a dictator who needs to be sucked up to it. It feels un-American and unserious rather. And you can see the contrast just this morning in the press briefings between the Secretary of Defense and General Kane, who gave a detailed, thoughtful analysis of what we know and don't know. About the extent of the damage with regards to the nuclear facilities, and so it's possible to do it. We've seen it. You saw it in Trump 1.0, where for all of my criticisms of it, there were some serious people, like General Mattis, that did not play along with this reality show. And unfortunately, in this term, you have this very serious issue. We're dealing with life or death. We're dealing with nuclear weapons, with war, with geopolitics, and the fact that you have to have a Secretary of Defense go out on TV and berate the media like they're children.
Conference today. 10 minutes at the start, going after the media and praising President Trump, that is where he sees his role.
The Secretary of Defense has a huge role, but it should be coordinated with the Director of National Intelligence, DNI, and their staff. And it should be a good coordinated position with the number of defense intelligence agencies that fall, if you will, under DOD's auspices. So you got to be careful and guarded, and you got to be careful before you proclaim this or that until the intel is fully fused. Fusion. That's all the intelligence. That's imagery, and it's signal intelligence and human intelligence and technical intelligence. That takes time. And there are agencies in DOD that do that. I'm sad. I think it got too politicized too fast and has diminished somewhat, really, the extraordinary role of the military in coordinating, planning, and delivering those massive bombs.
And it was actually Secretary Kane who gave us more information about that today, and the details are so impressive. Tim, the American people watching this, trying to figure out what's real, what's not real, what's the truth, what isn't. There's a new NBC News Decision Desk poll. It shows that more Americans are against these strikes, 45 opposed as opposed to 38 who support them. 60% believe that the president should have sought congressional authorization. But I wonder, what do Democrats do with that? What does any member of Congress do with that? Do the American people have any say in this?
Sure. Yeah, the American people have say. The degree to which it's unpopular, I think, is as demonstrated. That has an impact on President Trump. He's responsive. We've seen that in other areas, whether it be the tariffs or elsewhere, where he's putting forth something that's unpopular and then he backed off of it, though not completely. And so I do think that matters. Honestly, this is a moving situation, right? And I think that you see in the polls kind of mixed information, right? I think the American people, if it's a short contained strike that just goes after the Iran nuclear facilities and there's no nothing beyond that, that's going to be more supportive. People are going to be more supportive of that. If things escalate, which they had, well, they did slightly with the missile attacks going between Iran and Israel, but they not in a way that's affected, American troops or Americans. But if things escalate to the fact that that it does have an impact on Americans, I do think that will greatly impact the poll numbers, which will greatly impact President Trump. So, like a lot similarly to the intelligence, kind of the polling on this is still, in development. And I think that the impact, we'll know more in the coming weeks. And
what we see here is that Trump's Iran lies continue to doom him. And you see veterans like retired generals, you see veterans that are now serving their country in a different capacity in Congress, really hammer him. Soldiers, people that serve their country, saying that Donald isn't being honest and Donald was being rash and premature. And this dishonesty is not only an issue in and of itself, but also in the sense that it puts people at risk. Donald coming out and not being honest about what the operation was about, what it was for, what the motivations were, and also, did it succeed or not? Because here's my thing. You're not going to hear this from a lot of the mainstream media. The United States was the bad guy here. They were. They, without justification, because remember, when Trump's own advisor, the woman he picked and sent through the Senate, Tulsi Gabbard, he picked her. She went through the Senate. She got confirmed by the Senate. Her job is to look at intelligence and whatnot. And what she said before Trump basically forced her to change her tune was that there was no evidence rationalizing the bombing. And you have President of France, Macron, saying this is illegal. The United States was the aggressor here. 100%. They were the bad guys. The government that represents many of the people you're watching. Not the American people, the American government. And so that puts American soldiers at risk. Because not only does that lead to potential retaliation, but it further means that more and more countries around the world are not going to look at the United States as a beacon of democracy and freedom, but as a nation of military aggression that will bomb other countries for the audacity to maybe one day, maybe somewhat have a nuclear weapon when the United States is the only country in history to use a nuclear weapon. But more than that, how can soldiers trust their government if they lie to them? If every mission that actually succeeded was a failure? They can't trust Trump.